Welcome to this morning's practice. Today's class is called Hips That Move. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Again, I'll put in the description below the exact time that we get started, so you can just fast forward to that if you're watching this video later. But the purpose of today's class is to get our hips, the ball and socket joint and the pelvis, moving in all of their 6 directions to create balanced tension around the joint, so that we're training every single part of the hip to be involved, to participate. We're training our brain to be able to activate some of those areas, and I bet for you some of those areas are probably a little bit sleepy. I know for me, my glutes, for example, the big buttocks muscles on the back, big hip muscle, they're very sleepy because we spend all day sitting and they're elongated, and I haven't spent a lot of time in my life activating them and having them be active participants in things that I do, like walking to the car. So my hope is that we're going to turn on everything today. We're going to activate it really super duper well so that you're able to utilize this later. The point is always that this, condensed time here on our mats is a time to re-educate movement patterns so that later those patterns are a little bit more second nature, because the brain is always going to be trying to go down the easiest pathway. So if we can re-educate some of these movement patterns, make them easier for the brain to utilize at the snap of a finger, we'll have a better shot at actually activating some of these systems later on in our day. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a yoga block over here, and if you have a yoga block at home, that's great. Otherwise, you can just use a common household object once we get to that point. And we'll go ahead and get started on our backs, waking up the sleepy glutes that I was just referring to. So when you come on down here, just a few moments of unstructured movement. You can maybe windshield wiper your legs or really anything that feels good. And this is a time for us to take our attention. And our attention during our day is probably really merged up with thinking for the most part. And so see if we can soften our attention away from thinking and instead send our attention into every part of our body. So we're feeling every part of our body evenly. Nothing feels like it's offline and nothing feels like it's too online. So grounding the feet down, we'll start with bridge. So lifting the hips up here, and we want to negotiate a position for the low back where it feels not pinched. So utilizing the glutes, figuring out how we need to support the pelvis. And as you feel this, it's like the pelvis is lifting, but the rib cage is drawing down to the ground. So the back ribs are like poofing down towards the floor, even though the buttocks is working to lift the hips. Let's go ahead and work this dynamically. So touching up and down. And as you do this, start to feel your low back and the natural curve of the low back. See how much that curve is moving to lift and lower your hips. And the idea is that we want the buttocks muscles to do more of that work and the low back to do less. So the low back is really flexible, and because it's flexible and it's strong, when we move around this area down here, it's like, hey, I can move, I can take it on. Like it's like the overachiever in school who's like, I got it. But the teacher's like, no, the point is not for you to have it. The point is that for all of those slackers in the back of the room, AKA my booty, to start learning how to do some of this work for itself. So lifting up, hold it here. You can take breaks when you need, but this is great to give the brain actual time to activate this and turn this all on. So we're gonna take the feet a little bit closer towards each other here, and we're gonna see, can my buttocks muscles be strong enough that I can press down with the right foot and pull the left knee over the hip? So just feeling that. Do a little pulsing here as well. And this is just going to be little tiny movements. You want it to be driving from the butt, not from the low back. Left foot down. Seeing if we can hold the position, hold both sides of the pelvis up evenly, and you just play around with. Even if you don't get the foot off the ground, then you say, okay, it's just an attempt for me today. So we have the attempt and we see, do I go up and down? And again, we're just trying to fill our entire body with attention. So things that don't make sense, things that do make sense, things that are easy, things that are hard, everything gets the same amount of our attention. Right foot down, bridge pose, and releasing and relaxing all the way down to the ground. So just kind of do something here that feels good. Really important to get these sleepy glutes of ours on. Okay, let's keep going. Now we'll focus on the front of the abdomen. So interlock the hands behind the head, let the elbows wrap in by the face. Start by pressing your feet down and forward. That's going to get your legs active into the hips. And then feel the back of the ribs on the ground. That's challenging. And then see, can I lift up off the shoulder blades, head relaxed into the hand, back ribs down. I want to see here if I can feel balanced tension around the hip joint. So pressing the feet down and forward, that'll activate all the way up through the leg. And then the hip joint is the ball and socket where the thigh bone comes in to meet the pelvis. So 360 degrees around that, can I feel a little bit of tension of the leg drawing into the pelvis? Lift up off the shoulder blades more and release. Okay, so still trying to feel activation around the full circumference of the hip joint. When you come down, your back ribs are down on the floor. So all the contents of your abdomen are going down rather than poofing up. Coming up off the shoulder blades again, head relaxed into the hands. You have the option this time, keeping balanced tension around both hips, left leg up, knee over the hip into flexion, and then rotating the leg in the socket. Head is still relaxed in the hands, lifting up off the shoulder blades. And then left foot down. Can you stay up and go to the right leg? If not, take a little bit of a break. And here we're trying to move just the thigh bone. We're trying to keep the pelvis still. So we're going to see today that hip movement means one piece of the puzzle moves, the other piece stays still. And that can change. Sometimes you move the pelvis over the thigh bone, sometimes you move the thigh bone in the pelvis. Right foot down, head down, release, relax. When you're releasing and relaxing, remember everything from the front body contains itself down to the floor. Press your feet down and forward so you get activation around the hips. Lift up off the shoulder blades, back ribs down. Okay, left leg again. We can swivel. And you can also decide, hey, maybe I can figure four the left foot over the right knee. Keeping activation around the hip joint, pulling both legs in towards the body and out towards the ground. Left leg down. When you do that, keep your ribs on the ground, your back ribs. That's the hard part. Right leg up, swivel. You have the option to figure four. Balance tension around the hip joint. Maybe you draw the legs in. Keep your ribs down, keep your ribs down, keep your ribs down. Taking it all the way down, ribs down. Right foot down, release, relax. Whoo! So hopefully feeling the activation now along the front of the body. Okay, let's come up again, but this time I'm going to be quiet, and you get to choose the level of complexity that's right for you. So here we go, off the shoulder blades. You can stay here, or you can work with where we were just working. And we're about halfway there. So if you're doing one side of something, make sure you do the other. And when you're finished, release and relax everything down to the ground. Wow, that feels good in like a crazy way. So let's come on up to all fours. Take your time. And all fours is another one of those places that can be good to just kind of move around in any way that feels good to you. So if you don't like being on your hands to begin with, you can, pop yourself up onto your fists. You can pop yourself down onto your forearms. That's true now, and I think pretty much any time throughout practice. Just kind of take this time, reorient your body with gravity, and fill up your entire body. Now, if you're okay to have your knees pressing down on the ground here, we want to set the pelvis at neutral. So a neutral pelvis in this position is like the low back has like its natural baby back bend curve, but it's not overly pronounced. You could put a cup of coffee on your low back, and everything on the front body is lightly drawing up to support the back body. So what if we just pulled the heels, the toes up off the ground here? And again, we're trying to stay frozen in the pelvis, and we'll just swivel the legs left and right in the socket. This is one of my favorite things to do. And it doesn't feel like much if you're letting everything move. But if you're being really strong about this whole pelvis stability in the pelvis situation, you'll feel some good things. Taking the legs down, elbows down under the shoulders, forearms wide or clasped together. Tuck the toes, lift off the knees any amount for dolphin. Let's get a wider base, so step the feet wide. Tip yourself up onto your tippy toes, really lifting your tailbone up away from the back of your head, so just let the neck relax. In this position, we really want to feel the whole rib cage starting to lift up over the shoulders, and the legs are levers of our pelvis, trying to lift the pelvis up. Our frontal hip bones are drawing towards the spine. When you're ready for a break, knees down, back up to the hands. Push off the hands, walk yourself back to your feet. If the feet are far away from you, use your legs to perch yourself up, or like an ottoman, some furniture in front of you. And it's here that we'll just kind of move around in any way that feels good. This is really when we get into those types of class, move around any way that feels good, that's for your nervous system. To get your nervous system relaxed, stop perceiving any threats. As you feel ready, we'll bend into the knees, slowly rolling the spine all the way up to stand. So here we go, just for today. Taking the hands onto the hips, find your frontal hip bones, and just for today, look down and set your legs so that the frontal hip bones go straight down through the center of the knee and the center of the ankle. And then move your pelvis around here. You can kind of fold it forward and back. You can kind of circle it around. We just want to see can I move my pelvis? Can I move my pelvis? Notice that how you move it around, your thighs move with it, right? And so there's ways where you can have your thighs pulling back, or your thighs kind of anchored out to the side or pushing forward. So where we want to get here is the weight balanced in the feet so that our knees can be back over our ankles and our pelvis is back over our heels, so that our thighs are not pitching forward like this, what I'm doing here. So knees back, thighs back. We want our pelvis nice and upright. And then from here, slide the hands up to the ribs. Imagine that you're frozen from your navel down, and just move your rib cage, kind of the same way we were just doing with the pelvis. So these little small movements help us get a little bit more stability and mobility in different parts of the body that tend to move as big clumps. And so right now we're saying, hi brain, I'd like you to learn how to move different parts of my body independently. So getting the ribs now over the pelvis, hands down at the side. Can you feel your head pull up and back? Kind of like what we did last week in our neck class. And then breath and movement together. On the inhale, we can reach up, trying to keep everything in the body still, and down. I'm just doing that a few times. So trying to figure out, how can I move my arms, my shoulders without moving my ribs or my spine or my pelvis? And then here, let's map. Let's take one hand behind the head, one hand behind the low back. Try not to change any of that curvature. So this will help us stay long at the top of the spine, and this will help us stay stable at the bottom of the spine. Remember how the low back is really flexible. It wants to help with movement, and we say, no, thank you, Mr. Low Back. Instead, Mr. Low Back doesn't move as we bend the knees slightly here. And then from here, using the legs and the buttocks, tipping the whole front body forward to a hip hinge, any amount, and then coming back up. So trying to just take this movement at the legs, at the hips really, that's the only joint change. And when we make this change, we're going for balanced tension around the entire hip. So coming down, holding the position here, decide how you want to play with your arms today. Do you want them here? Do you want them out like wings? From here, tipping forward over the leg forward fold. We're gonna walk ourselves forward to our first down dog, but as we do that, I want us to feel the thighs pull into the hip socket as if they're trying to pull your pelvis up and back as your hands walk forward. So here we are, downward facing dog. Try to push out with your fingers more than with your wrists. Try to feel the legs drawing up into the pelvis with some balanced tension there. Let's go ahead and from here, shift the position forward towards plank top of a push-up. If this is a lot, you can put your knees down, but push out through your hands, lift up through your ribs, your pelvis lifts. Balance tension around the hip joint, all sides. Keep some tension around the hips as you lower the knees down to the ground. Press down with your hands. It's like your hands are dialing away from each other as you bend the elbows and you try to lower in one piece. Coming all the way down. Just to get the shoulders a little bit warmed for us, relax the tops of the feet down. Use a little buttocks and a little abdomen to secure the low back in a position where it feels okay. Then go ahead, cactus the arms here. We'll just pulse them up and down. Back of the neck long. We're trying to get this movement to happen without our ribs moving with us. And try to keep your elbows in the same line as your shoulders. Okay, from here, let's go ahead, slide the hands back underneath the elbows, roll the shoulders away from the ground, lift the chest up just a little bit without the low back pinching. So a little bit more glutes, a little bit more abdomen, the whole contents of the front of the body pulling up. Imagine that we're creating a container that's organized here in the chest. We're trying not to disturb that as we push up to the knees, and then tucking the toes under, lifting up and back, downward facing dog. From this downward facing dog, we'll lift the left foot to touch the bottom and lower it. We'll do that a few times. This is a stability exercise for the standing hip, trying to get the pelvis to not sway, not move. After this last one, left foot down, right foot lifts. Try to stay balanced in your ribs, balanced in your shoulders. And then both feet down. We're going to push off the hands to walk back, but imagine again that it's the thighs pulling up into the pelvis to pull the pelvis back over the heels as we walk back. On the inhale breath, let's reverse out halfway. Keep tension around the hips. And then hands onto the pelvis, standing up. Inhale, we reach the arms all the way out and up. Exhale, we take the hands down. We'll go ahead and start walking forward here. So let's map again, low back and the neck. We try to find that neutral pelvis, neutral ribs, neutral spine. Without moving at the low back, we'll see, can I lift my left leg up in front? Walk forward. Can I lift my right knee up in front? Walk forward. So the pelvis is not trying to pitch forward or back. It's trying to stay nice and level. Once we get to the top of the mat here, hands down, reach all the way out and up. On the exhale, you know what to do, hinging forward, keeping that balanced tension. On the inhale breath, arms wide. And on the exhale breath, as hands come down, bending both legs, can I pick the left foot up? It's kind of like what we just did in down dog. Step the leg back, the knee down, top of the foot down. You can always put cushion there. Push down with the right foot, come on up. Take a few moments to set the legs evenly into the pelvis. So balance tension around both joints, even though it's hard to feel here because your right leg is in hip flexion, where the thigh is in front of the pelvis. And then your left thigh is in hip extension, where the thigh is moving down away from the pelvis. So a little bit challenging just to feel that there, but we want to see pelvis balance between the legs and between the armpits. The armpits will come in handy now as we take the arms forward, but the arms are not resting on the rib cage. The rib cage is lifting, the rib cage is pulled back over the pelvis, and the head is pulled back over that. Keeping the torso evenly long on both sides will amplify the stretch of the left hip here as we open the right arm to the side and turn to the right. Back to center. So turning from the ribs and feeling the rib cage lift evenly from the pelvis on both sides. One more. Coming back through center here, hands down, tuck the back toes, bring the back foot underneath the body. Here we go. Inhale, we'll come up. Exhale, we take the hands down, hands onto the waist maybe. Here we go, we'll come down for chair. Pulse in your chair pose. Again, we're trying to have the low back stay nice and neutral. We're trying to just move at the ankles, knees, and hips. A couple more. As you feel ready, tipping forward over the legs. Inhale, widening the arms halfway up. And the exhale, hands down, we'll move straight to the other side. So with organization, lift the right foot, step the foot back, knee down, top of the foot down. As you come up, it's kind of like a half kneeling position. You take some time to get organized. Pelvis evenly set between your legs. That can be hard to feel. And we're never aiming for perfection, just more precision than last time. So where would I be? Like it's really hard for me to feel this one. That's why it's good to practice. Okay, so getting ourselves nice and lifted, arms forward. And as you feel ready to go into your twists, think about your twists, it's a little balance. Think about your twists as a time for the right side of the body to get really long vertically. As you come forward, hands down to the floor, lift the back leg, step back downward facing dog. As you feel ready from here, shift forward, plank, top of a push-up, here we are, hold it. Easy through the breathing, knees down onto the ground. Here we go, can we keep some balance tension into the hip joint, and can we lower all the way? Coming all the way down here, let's go ahead, slide the hands back with the pinkies facing up. We'll lift the legs up off the ground. We just want to make sure that the low back feels spacious, like it's not being pinched. So maybe a little bit more glutes, a little bit more abdomen, lifting the legs. Maybe even swimming the legs. So like one up at a time, up and down. Feel your back ribs are still nice and spacious. The back of your neck has space. From here, legs down, slide the hands back underneath the elbows. Do that without the front rib cage busting up. So the whole rib cage is pulling up into itself. Here we go, we're gonna lift back up to the knees, tucking the toes under, lift off the knees, down dog. Remember the idea of the legs pulling back into the hips here. So pull the legs back into the pelvic sockets. Once again, we'll pull the left foot off the ground. This time, you can do the same thing that we just did, or you can stretch the left leg straight back so it's parallel to the floor, and then knee into the belly. Back and in, holding the down dog. So again, trying to just move the leg, not the pelvis. That means that it's actual, true hip movement. After this last one, left foot down, right foot up. We stretch the right leg back, knee in and away. As we feel ready, right foot down, pressing off the hands. Here we go. Pushing back, legs pull ourselves up to a forward fold. Breathing in, maybe the arms go wide, hands to the waist, standing upright. Inhale, we reach the arms all the way up. Exhale, hands down. We'll walk forward doing our leg abduction series. So I'll turn to face you, but we'll walk this way, okay? Pelvis upright, ribs upright, head upright. And then from here, we can pull the right leg out to the side. Try to do this without your bone structure toppling in any direction. So you're not trying to catch yourself with bones. Instead, feel the bottom leg pull up, like stockings pulling up around the leg into the hip, so that this becomes more about the standing leg rather than this party leg out to the side. So we can walk forward with the right leg, left leg pulls out to the side. Again, we want to stay nice and vertical in the bone structure. We want to feel the right leg like a stocking of activation from the foot all the way up into the hip, and then walking forward. Okay, so this time we can add complexity if you like. So you can do this, or we can touch down and up, and down and up. And so you just go in whatever pace makes sense for you. I hope you can feel this in your bottom. So those sleepy glutes are not so sleepy right now. That would be the best. And then stepping forward one more time, we have the left side. So first finding that activation, stocking of activation all the way up, and then touching up and down. As you feel ready, both feet, one right next to the other. Here we go. Inhale, we'll reach ourselves all the way out and up. On the exhale, we can tip forward over the legs. Coming out of the position for the halfway, try to get balanced tension around the hips. And then exhale, hands down. We'll move the legs back, downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, we can shift the position forward towards our plank, top of a push-up. You decide if you have your knees up or down as you, with control, slowly lower. Once we come down here, tops of the feet down, intent the fingers outside the mat, pushing down with the finger pads, elbows up, press down, roll the chest off the ground, any amount. See if rooting down through the fingers, you can turn on a line of activation through your arms into the front of your armpits, into your chest muscles. So those muscles are helping to support you. And only roll yourself up off the ground as much as you can without the low back pinching. So what's useful for me here is feeling like, okay, the whole front of the body has to pull into the position. If I feel any part of the front of the body push away, that's my signal to back up. Let's go ahead, slide the hands back underneath the elbows. See, can I stay organized in my chest? Can I pull the front body into the back body as I lift up to the knees, tucking the toes, up and back, downward facing. This downward facing dog, one more time with the feet. So left foot lifts. You can do either one of the things that we just did, or start to move the knee around in some controlled hip circles here. So controlled hip circles, trying to not move our pelvis or our low back at all. Maybe taking just a few in both directions. When you feel ready for your second side, you can go right to your other leg unless you want to break. And make sure on this side as well you go in both directions. As you feel ready, both feet down, we'll push off the hands, walk back to the feet. Here we go. Breathing in, arms wide, standing all the way up. Inhale, reach. Exhale, hands down. We're gonna walk forward again. Left leg up in front. Trying to do this with the pelvis upright. So your frontal hip bones are not rocking forward or backward, and you kind of have to catch yourself. Sometimes they rock forward, sometimes they rock backward. So how can I not do that? Left foot down, right foot up. Holding again here, trying to maintain verticality. So again, I'm not trying to hold with my bones. That's not the point. The point is to hold with the structure and the activation of my tissues. Right foot down. Here we go, left foot up. This time, hands under the pelvis, you can feel it. These frontal hip bones do not move as we start to take the left knee by the right knee towards hip extension, right, where the thigh goes away. So pulling the left knee back up, flexion, left thigh moves down and away, extension. Move like that. Let's hold extension down here, keeping the pelvis exactly upright, so not taking this from the low back, which is really common, especially in back bends. Back bends, low back should be in its natural neutral curve. It's the legs that do the work. So front pelvis in, try to take your left knee by your right knee, and then here we go. Hamstring cramp time. Squeeze your left heel in by your bottom. Squeeze your left heel in by your bottom. Oh gosh. And release. See if you can stand here without freaking out about it. Feel your left hammy, maybe your right bottom, as a stability muscle was really active during that time as well. So right leg, just moving it from flexion to extension. If your balance is really compromised, by the way, feel free to go by your kitchen counter or just like a chair back, a pillar in your house. Let's meet with the right leg in extension, front pelvis in, drawing the right knee back, and then squeezing the heel in. Hold it here. Hold it here. Be strong in your standing leg. Gently release without freaking out. That can be a big cramp city. And cramps are usually okay. It just means that the brain hasn't had a lot of experience activating this part of the body. So if you are one of those people who always feels tight in their hips and their hamstrings, you maybe want to do more of this strengthening stuff so that the nervous system can feel more confident. Okay, feet down onto the ground here on the inhale breath. We can reach all the way out and up. As we feel ready, we can step the left foot back to lunge. Keeping all the bones facing forward. Choose the distance between your legs. Pull yourself back so your pelvis can be upright here with your ribs upright and your head pulled all the way up and back over the pelvis. Starting with the arms forward here. Again, they're not just hanging on the ribs, so the ribs are pulling back and up, head's pulling back and up. You decide if you want your arms to go more towards shoulder flexion, overhead. From here, we're going to challenge the stability of the hips. Imagine that the pelvis is sort of, for lack of a better word, frozen. So create some nice balanced tension around all of the joints. And then from here, start moving your upper body around. I'm going to start by casting forward and then peeling myself back. But imagine that the upper body is sort of like a hurricane or something. I don't know if that's the right image. Pick an image. And your leg's job is to just be super strong into the pelvis. Okay, coming all the way out and up here, we're gonna turn to face the wide side of the mat. Heels in, toes out, to the point that you feel balanced, that your knees feel okay, and that when you sit down, your pelvis can be upright. So you're at home, you don't have anything to prove to anyone, right? Don't feel like you have to get your toes all the way open. That's ridiculous. So sitting down here, pelvis nice and upright, can I create that balanced activation around the entire circumference of my hip joint? Can we practice that as we pulse up and down? Press down with your feet, straighten the legs, balanced tension around the joint, coming down. So I'll even do like a little arm variation. When you come up, think also like your rib cage should also stay in neutral. Your head and neck should also stay in neutral. Okay, here we go. We're gonna come down. We're gonna turn to face the back of the mat. Here we are in the high lunge to the other side on the left. So we get our pelvis upright, our ribs upright, all that good stuff. You choose an arm variation, and now it's like a blustery day, and the torso's trying to mess up the jive of the lower body. As we feel ready from here, we're gonna bring the back foot forward. So you're facing the back of your mat at the back, right? Okay, so here we are. We're gonna come back down to a chair pose. A little bouncy, a little pulsy, you just see how you feel. Is it different than how we did chair pose before? And tipping forward over the legs. Breathing in, arms wide. Breathing out, hands down, stepping back, downward facing. From here, shifting the position forward to plank. We want our pelvis to stay nice and neutral. I'll go back to stay neutral as we take right knee down, left knee down, right leg back, left leg back, maybe 4 or 5 more times. So again, we're just trying to move at the hips, not at the pelvis or the low back. Taking the legs down. Tabletop position here. From tabletop position, stretch the right leg back with the toes tucked under. Feel your legs evenly drawn to your pelvis. Your pelvis is evenly set. Your side waist, so from your pelvis to your armpits, is evenly set. Can you lift your right foot off the ground without pitching anything in the front body towards the ground? So it may not be very high. That's okay. Hip extension. Touching a foot down to the outside and inside. So we're just kind of moving the leg from one side to the other. May not be a huge range of motion, but all we're trying to do here is move in the hip joint and nowhere else. Okay, from here, we're gonna see, can I take my left hand down to the ground? Can I pivot open on that left hip? You can even kick your leg out more as a kickstand for a side plank. So feeling myself nice and evenly here, rib cage drawing evenly out from the pelvis, feeling balanced tension around both hips, that's hard. Maybe taking the right arm up. Maybe bending into the right knee, and again, keeping all of this secure on the front body, flexing the foot and just pulsing back. Pulsing and pushing back just a little bit. As we feel ready from here, right hand back down, right leg long, right leg down, stretch it all the way back, downward facing. Pushing off the hands, walking back to the feet one at a time. Here we are, we're bending forward at the back of the mat. On the inhale breath, arms wide. And on the exhale breath, standing up. Grounding down through the feet. Inhale, reach the arms up. Taking the hands down. Okay, my friends, it's block time. So if you have a yoga block, if you don't have a yoga block, cool. Any household object that's like 8 inches tall, something that's like a little bit tall that you could grab from the floor. Here we go. I'm gonna start with the right leg up. This is now very familiar to us. Hip bones in, leg up in front of us. We're not counterbalancing with our bones. Start by taking the block to the leg, hands to the block, and push the block, the leg into the block. And you can see you could do this without a block, right? But here's where the block comes in handy. Block in the left hand to the right waist. Bend the standing leg a little bit. We're gonna see, can I hinge forward over the standing leg? So we practice this with both legs. And now my right leg has an opportunity to find warrior 3 behind. And I want balanced tension around both hip joints. So I don't want my right foot to push away and like kind of tug my leg out of my pelvis. But from here, I'm gonna use my left hand and I'm gonna see how far away can I place my object. Then I'm gonna rock all the way back up. Right leg here in front, holding for a moment. Same thing, I'm gonna go down, paying attention, seeing if I can remain balanced. I'm gonna see, can I find my block? Pulling all the way back up. Block to the leg, pressing into it. Nice and lifted through the rib cage and the chest. And one more time, block in the left hand. Tipping forward, take your breaks, my friends. Okay, where did you put it before? See if you can put it in a different spot. And coming all the way back up. Let's go ahead, step the right foot forward. And just see how you feel. So a lot of things could be going on in that standing leg. Maybe you can even feel like the foot had to do a lot of work. So great, now we know that hips are connected to feet. Strong feet means better working hips, right? So all of this is great. Again, never aiming for perfection, just more precision than last time. Go ahead, grab your block from the floor. Left leg up. Balance tension around the joints. Get your pelvis neutral. Block onto the leg. We press. As we feel ready, we take the block in the right hand. We hinge forward over that front leg, trying to pay as much attention as we can. Balanced tension around the hip joint. You know, you don't ever have to extend this back leg back. You could keep it kind of curled into the body. But now, can the right hand find a place to take the block and all the way back up? Give yourself a moment in the upright position. Balanced tension around the hip joint. Here we go. We're gonna fold forward. We're gonna see, can I find my blocky? Coming all the way back up. Hand to block to leg. One more time, and this time, remember, like, where did you go? And could you go someplace else? All the way back up. Ooh la la. Stepping all the way forward. And just bringing one foot by the other. See if you can resist the temptation to shake out. So I think shaking out is sometimes us being like, oh, I don't want to feel this. But it's okay. Feel it. It's good. Sometimes these sensations are new, but they're not bad. They're intense, but they're not bad. Okay, so let's get rid of the block. And for now, let's go back to lunging. So left foot in front, right foot in back. This time I'll say, just to create a different experience for the hips, maybe you do warrior 1. What if you ground the back heel down with the toes pointing out really in any direction, and you just try to experiment and feel this. And the back foot should never be like a secondary thought. Should be always grounding through the back foot, drawing that tension up through the leg, again like stockings, and really trying to smooth out the front of that right hip crease. It's the left hip crease that you want a deep, deep crease there, but still the frontal hip bone drawing in. You take the position any way you like. Now, turning the back heel up and pulling the back heel down. Back heel up back heel down. See if you can get this front leg super strong through that action. The front buttocks especially. So the left buttocks is really, its purpose is to hold the pelvis and secure the pelvis from the front. Coming up to the back toes, here we are. We're gonna turn again, heels in, toes out. So here we are, horse pose. And in this horse pose, we're gonna try to stay low. We're gonna keep moving, and we're gonna try to keep balanced tension around the hip joints. So let's turn to warrior two to the right. Turn your left toes towards the long edge of your mat, your right toes forward, but then keep moving back to horse and to warrior two to the left. So as you move, maybe 4 or 5 times to each side, see if you can keep balanced tension around the hip joint. Are you tired of hearing me say that yet? Coming back, come down. From here, we're gonna turn to face the front, so you're in that high lunge on the right. High lunge on the right, find your pelvis, your ribs, your spine, and then grounding the left heel down for warrior one. So the back heel is down, pay attention to the back leg. The back leg is sort of cranking up away from the pelvis, but the pelvis is upright in the body, as upright as we can make it. And then from here, left heel up, we face forward. Use strength in the right buttocks to take the heel back down. Heel up, heel down. One more time, heel up. This time, stretching the arms all the way down, moving the right leg back, downward facing. Downward facing, shifting forward to plank, top of a push-up. One knee down, second knee down. Right leg back, left leg back, whatever you're doing. Make sure your neck is in line here. Then with the legs down, see, can we step the left foot back, toes tucked under, keep balanced tension around the hip joints. We're not trying to pitch in the pelvis or the ribs as we lift the left leg off the ground any amount. Just trying to find that, and we touch to the inside and the outside. Again, trying not to take this movement from the pelvis, the spine, the ribs. And then from here, left leg up, rotating the pelvis open. And now we're in that modified side plank. So balanced tension around the hips. Try to feel your rib cage. You can always take your left arm up. You can flex the left foot, bend into the knee, and pulse it back without any of this front body stuff kind of escaping. As we feel ready, left hand down, left leg back, all the way up and back, downward facing. See how you feel here. Let's go ahead, push off the hands one at a time, walk back to the feet. If the floor is far away, you might put your hands on an ottoman or on some yoga blocks here. We want to see, can I pull the left foot up towards the bottom, stretch it back for a standing split, balanced tension around both of my hip joints, level the pelvis, and I can always measure that like hip bones to armpits. Is that pretty even all the way down? And then just pulling that leg in and out, flossing it a little bit. Left foot down, feeling the pose. Right foot lifts, stretching that leg back. Balanced tension around the hip joint. Balanced pelvis between the armpits. Staying here or working in and out. Then as you feel ready, both feet down, knees down, come on down to a seat. How you feeling? I feel pretty good in the hippies. So let's come on down, all the way to the back. And we can draw the knees into the chest and roll around a bit. Crossing one leg over the other. Bending the knees, letting the heels flop in, and then just squeezing the legs toward the body, a little hip stretch. And roll around a little bit, kind of find some sweet spots to maybe hold and stretch. You can even roll out through your feet and your ankles if that feels good. And then releasing the legs, straightening them. One's in front of the other, right? So can you just move them, one towards your face and one towards the floor, but keep your back ribs down and your pelvis, your frontal hip bones down. And then see if you can circle them away from each other and bring them into the opposite position. So back ribs down, pelvis down, otherwise you're gonna feel this in your low back. And so if you are feeling it in your low back, then I would recommend do less range of motion. Less range of motion is a good way to minimize the load on something. Okay, so when the legs get to the opposite position, bending into the legs, letting the heels flop into the belly, grabbing onto them and kind of pulling them towards you. Okay, drawing the knees in towards the shoulders here. You can sort of roll around. Do anything else that feels good for your practice, whether you want to take a little twisty or a little happy baby pose. Sometimes it's nice, especially when you're doing this at home, to just take the freedom and move in a way that feels good. Now from here, I'll say, let's find a comfortable position to rest for a few minutes. So whether you want to lay down on your back or whether you want to put your legs up onto an ottoman, that can feel really nice if you have that. You could even rest laying on your side or even in a comfortable seated position. But let's see if we can kind of all position ourselves, find ourselves in a place where it's sort of like right before your alarm goes off in the morning and you're awake already, but it's just so nice. Like you're perfectly warm and the air outside the comforter is really crisp. Maybe you can see a little bit of sunlight through the creases of your eyes. You hear some birds or some family members pattering around. Some cats or dogs saying, "Wake up, it's time to feed me." But it's like that moment in the morning where you're like, everything is right. That's really what we aim to get to in our Shavasana, is the feeling that everything is right. And so, if everything were right, exactly as it is, how would you breathe? How would you hold the muscles in your face? How would the rest of the muscles in your body participate? If you'd like to start moving a little bit, start moving your body. But have this movement be a continuation of the feeling that all is right. So if all were right, how would you move your body? And what would the qualities of that movement be? Would that movement be more as a celebration? Would it be more like an exploration? Would it be like a wondrous thing of like, you know, we've been in our bodies for a long time. So for us, it's like, yeah, I have 10 fingers and I have 2 hands and 2 wrists and 2 elbows. But isn't that also kind of wondrous? Isn't that also kind of like, what is this? If you want to end in a seated position today, go ahead, find your way up here. This is where I'll end, and I'll even give us the opportunity, if you have a few more minutes, to just sit silently. That can be a really powerful experience for us, and it's the same way that we come here to re-educate our movement patterns in our body. Silent sitting is more of that same type of re-education, but it's not in our tissues, it's in our mind. And there's a lot of thinking patterns that we have that normally turn immediately into behavior. And we have a hard time kind of understanding that there is, and there can be space between our thinking and the behavior that our thinking generates. And so silent sitting is a really great time to re-educate that aspect of our experience, because it's this aspect that helps us see things differently. And seeing things differently is the difference between being happy and being miserable. So I want to thank you all for joining me today for this class, Hips That Move. I hope that your hips feel very flossed and that there's some piece of what we did today that extends beyond our time on the mat here. Maybe you start utilizing your hips differently when you're picking up the kiddos or picking up some grocery bags or getting up and down from your office chair. That would be the ultimate goal of this practice, is to re-educate the body so that as we're moving around over the course of the day, it's more and more optimized, we're using more and more activation, and our nervous system responds by making us feel good. Less outputs of pain, inflammation, and tightness. That would be the ultimate goal. So thank you all so much for joining. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below, and I will make sure that I speak to any of those next week at our next live stream class, which will be next Saturday morning, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We'll focus on our knees next week. So we'll move down one joint from the hips. I think it'll be a really great complement to what we did today. And then of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That actually makes quite a bit of a difference, believe it or not. And then if you like what we did today and you want to contribute or donate in some way, I actually already have a link to that in the description below. It'll send you to our website where you can make a one-time donation of any amount of your choosing, or you can sign up on our Patreon to make monthly donations, again, at any amount of your choosing. But the Patreon page is a good place for you to get exclusive content, and we'll be building out that platform and sort of the prizes, for lack of a better word, for members as that platform builds. So thank you all so much for your time. And Ollie, do we have any questions for today? No, okay. So thank you all so much for your time and have a wonderful day.